Welcome to Zoe Stories. I took a dare. Now I'm the queen bee of school. I never expected a single dare to change my life, but there I was, standing in front of the mirror, staring at a version of myself I barely recognized. The reflection staring back wasn't just me. It was someone bold, confident, and entirely unafraid. The dark, baggy jeans and hoodies I usually hid behind were gone, replaced with a fitted skirt, a stylish blouse, and heels that made me tower in ways I had never dared to imagine. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the hem, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of the skirt brushing against my legs. Every movement was new, every breath loaded with anticipation. I'm Alex, a 17-year-old high school junior. Quiet, cautious, and painfully average. At least that's how I spent most of my life. Sports were my thing, my grades were decent but not remarkable, and I had always flown under the radar.
Until now.
Until that one fateful lunch break when Emma, the most popular girl in school, smirked and said, "I dare you to wear something different tomorrow. Something that will make everyone look twice." I had laughed it off at first, assuming it was one of those casual high school pranks, the kind you shrugged off and forgot. But the idea lingered, poking at a part of me I didn't know existed, a thrill, a curiosity, a secret desire to see what it felt like to truly stand out. My home, a small apartment shared with my mom and younger sister, had always been a sanctuary of routine. Cozy furniture, warm lighting, and the faint scent of mom's baking created a predictable environment, one that felt safe. But the thought of tomorrow, of transforming into someone unrecognizable yet undeniably visible, made my stomach twist in excitement and fear. I had never cross-dressed before, never seriously, but the dare had awoken something in me. I realized that beneath my shy exterior, a part of me longed for attention, for recognition, for a taste of the power that came from being noticed. Emma had always been out of my league. Blonde hair perfectly styled, sparkling green eyes, and a laugh that could light up any room. Popular, confident, untouchable. And yet, she had chosen me, or perhaps merely chosen the challenge, knowing full well how predictable I was. Her smirk that day wasn't just playful, it was a spark that ignited a chain reaction I wasn't ready for. I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd say if I actually went through with it, if I transformed myself into something bold, something daring, something memorable. That night, I rummaged through my closet, pausing at each piece of clothing, imagining the persona it could create. My hands lingered over my sister's skirts, not to steal, but to explore, to see the texture, the way fabric felt against skin that had never experienced it before. The blouse I selected was soft, delicate, yet commanding in its own way, a reflection of the confident persona I secretly craved. The heels were another story entirely. Standing in them made my legs wobble, every step a reminder that I was walking into uncharted territory. But the sensation thrilled me, made me feel alive, aware, and dangerously visible. By the time morning came, the nervous anticipation had built into a crescendo. Emma's dare wasn't just a casual suggestion anymore. It was a challenge, a gauntlet I had chosen to run. My reflection in the mirror stared back, a mix of fear and exhilaration etched across my face. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, feeling the soft sway of the skirt and the click of the heels against the tile floor. This wasn't just about clothing. It was about transformation. It was about stepping into a role I had never dared to imagine, one that promised attention, influence, and a power I had always lacked. Walking to school that day felt like stepping onto a stage. Every glance, every whisper, every curious stare magnified my awareness. I could feel the energy shift as people noticed me, the way heads turned, the subtle change in the air as whispers began to ripple through the hallways. It was intoxicating, frightening, and exhilarating all at once. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't average. I was noticed, and the thrill of that recognition sent shivers down my spine. Emma met me at the entrance, her smirk wider than ever. "Well," she said, eyes sparkling with mischief, "I didn't think you'd actually do it." but wow, you really pulled it off." Her words hit me with an unexpected punch of validation and anxiety. I had stepped into the dare, embraced the transformation, and now the entire school was watching, evaluating, whispering, and judging. Every glance was a test, every comment a challenge. And through it all, I felt a strange surge of empowerment. By the end of the first day, it became clear that the dare was more than a prank. It was a turning point. I wasn't just Alex anymore. I had become someone else entirely, someone with a presence that demanded attention. And as whispers spread, as new groups approached me with curiosity and admiration, I realized that Emma's dare had unlocked something deeper. Something that could change not just how others saw me, but how I saw myself. As I sat alone that night, heels kicked off and skirt folded carefully on my chair, I reflected on the whirlwind of the day. The thrill of transformation, the fear of exposure, and the intoxicating rush of attention had intertwined into a heady cocktail I couldn't ignore. The dare had started as a joke, but it had revealed a side of me I had never explored, a side that craved influence, attention, and the power that came from commanding the room. Tomorrow promised new challenges, new tests, and the tantalizing possibility that I wasn't done yet. And deep down, I knew that stepping into this persona wasn't just temporary. The dare had unlocked a door, and I wasn't ready to close it. I was ready to see just how far I could go, how far Alex could push the boundaries, navigate the whispers, and embrace the transformation that made me feel unstoppable. The Queen Bee of School wasn't just a nickname. It was a role I was beginning to embody, and nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my alarm buzzing insistently. The sunlight streamed through my blinds, painting stripes across the floor, and for a moment, I just lay there, frozen. Today wasn't just another school day. It was the continuation of a dare that had become something more, something electrifying. I could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on me. Would I be able to carry the persona I had glimpsed in the mirror yesterday? Could Alex really become someone bold, someone admired, someone feared even? I dressed carefully, methodically. The skirt was smoother than I remembered, soft against my thighs, and the blouse hugged in all the right places, without feeling restrictive. My fingers lingered over the small zipper at the back, adjusting it meticulously, making sure everything was perfect. Heels, those terrifying, exhilarating heels, waited at my feet. I slipped them on, wobbling slightly, but forcing myself to walk across the room with measured grace. Every step was a reminder of the thrill and vulnerability of transformation. The click of the heels against the hardwood was a small announcement, an audible declaration that today, Alex would not be invisible. Breakfast was tense. My mom hummed in the kitchen, oblivious to the fact that I was teetering on the edge of becoming someone entirely new. I poured cereal slowly, every movement calculated to maintain composure. The reflection in the shiny silver toaster caught my eye, and for a second, I froze. The Alex in the mirror was confident, poised, dangerous in her own way. And yet, there was that familiar flutter of fear, the knowledge that one slip could unravel everything. When I arrived at school, the halls already buzzed with whispers. I could feel the eyes on me, some curious, some impressed, some skeptical. The dare had set the stage, and I was performing, balancing carefully between excitement and fear. My friends were staring, their mouths slightly open. Some giggled nervously, while others exchanged whispered glances. For the first time, I was center stage, and it was intoxicating. Emma appeared at my side, perfectly composed as always, blonde hair catching the light, green eyes sparkling with mischief. "You're really pulling it off," she murmured, leaning close so only I could hear. "I didn't expect you to have it." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, a mixture of pride and anxiety. The dare had become a test of character, a challenge of confidence, and I was discovering a side of myself I hadn't known existed. During first period, the suspense intensified. Every glance, every whisper, every sidelong glance from classmates was a test. I moved through the hallways like a performer, each step calculated, each smile precise. The thrill of commanding attention clashed with the fear of exposure. Could I keep up this persona? Could Alex maintain the delicate balance between admiration and scrutiny? The internal tension was almost unbearable. Lunch brought its own challenges. Emma and her friends approached with a curious mix of excitement and judgment. The dare had set me apart, elevated me into a role I had never imagined, and now the social dynamics of the cafeteria became a stage for my transformation. I felt every eye, every hushed comment, as if the room itself were testing me. The exhilaration was palpable, but so was the vulnerability. One wrong word, one misstep, and the carefully constructed persona could collapse. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the thrill that had drawn me here in the first place. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional, psychological. I felt powerful, admired, and terrifyingly visible. The dare had unlocked a door, revealing a side of Alex that craved attention and influence, a side that could wield charm and presence like a weapon. By the end of the day, I was exhausted but exhilarated. The persona had survived scrutiny, whispers, and the constant pressure of observation. Walking home, heels clacking on the pavement, I felt a rush of accomplishment. I had embraced the dare fully, stepped into the queen bee persona, and navigated the suspense of social exposure. And yet, beneath the triumph, a quiet tension lingered, a sense that the dare was only the beginning, that more challenges awaited, that the persona was fragile and had to be maintained with care. That night, I stood before the mirror again, removing the heels and adjusting the blouse. The reflection stared back, confident, poised, transformed. Alex had survived the first real test, but the real journey was just beginning. The thrill of transformation, the fear of exposure, and the intoxicating power of visibility had intertwined into a potent cocktail that I could not ignore. The dare had been accepted, the persona embraced, and the stage was set for the next challenge. The next morning, a nervous energy had settled over me like a second skin. Walking into school wasn't just about facing classmates. It was about maintaining a persona that had already begun to take on a life of its own. The dare had evolved beyond a simple prank. It was now a challenge to navigate social hierarchies, command attention, and survive scrutiny without faltering. I felt the soft sway of the skirt as I moved through the halls, every step a reminder that Alex had become someone others noticed, someone others watched. Emma was already waiting by my locker, her perfectly manicured hand brushing against her hair as she regarded me with an unreadable expression. "Looks like you've got a following," she said casually, though the corner of her mouth betrayed amusement. Behind her, a small group of classmates watched with curiosity, their whispers rising and falling like a tide. I straightened my back, shoulders squared, heels clicking with purpose, signaling that I wasn't the shy, invisible Alex anymore. I was something new, something powerful. The cafeteria was the next test. Lunchroom politics were brutal, a constant battlefield of whispers, glances, and subtle power plays. I moved to the center of a cluster of tables, feeling every eye on me, as though I were on stage. The adrenaline surged, mixing fear with excitement. Every comment, every glance, was a performance. I smiled, laughed lightly, and spoke just enough to assert presence without overstepping. The thrill of control was intoxicating. For the first time, I felt influence, a sense of power that I had never experienced before. But with power came challenges. A group of upperclassmen, notorious for testing new social climbers, approached. They circled, exchanging glances, murmuring quietly. One of them leaned in, teasing with a sly grin. "So, Alex, daring to be the center of attention now, huh?" My pulse spiked. The persona had to hold. A faltering smile or a nervous laugh would betray me immediately. I straightened, voice firm yet smooth. "Just experimenting," I said, letting the words carry confidence I didn't entirely feel. The group chuckled lightly but moved on, their curiosity satisfied. The moment passed, leaving me exhilarated yet aware of how precarious my position had become. Between classes, whispers followed me through the hallways. Friends I hadn't noticed before offered compliments, some genuine, some tinged with rivalry. Every interaction was a careful negotiation of persona and reality. I felt both exhilarated and vulnerable, the duality of the situation pressing on me. Alex was visible, admired, and envied, but one misstep could unravel everything. The dare had ignited a transformation, but now the challenge was sustaining it under continuous observation. In English class, I found myself sitting near a group of girls who had once ignored me entirely. They leaned in, asking questions about the daring outfit and my new look, their curiosity tinged with admiration and suspicion. I answered with carefully measured words, allowing glimpses of personality, but never revealing too much. The thrill of social navigation, the mix of fear, excitement, and strategic charm, was like nothing I had ever experienced. Alex was emerging not just as a visible figure, but as someone who could influence, command, and subtly control attention. By the time the last bell rang, I was exhausted in a way that was unfamiliar. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally, and socially. The dare had become a crucible, forcing me to navigate social hierarchies, maintain composure, and embrace a persona that was as thrilling as it was terrifying. Walking home, heels clicking on the pavement, I realized just how deeply the transformation had affected me. The power of visibility, the intoxicating mix of admiration and envy, and the constant undercurrent of fear had created a tension I couldn't ignore. At home, I carefully set aside the skirt and blouse, heels lined up neatly by the door. The reflection in the mirror showed a mixture of triumph and anxiety, confidence and vulnerability. Alex had survived another day of scrutiny, teasing, and social maneuvering, but the journey was far from over. The dare had started as a simple challenge, but it had evolved into a full-fledged transformation, testing not only appearance and posture but courage, strategy, and emotional resilience. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on the day's events. Every glance, every comment, every whispered assessment had been a test, and Alex had passed. The queen bee persona wasn't just a disguise, it was a revelation of aspects I had never acknowledged: boldness, confidence, and the subtle power of commanding attention. But the suspense lingered. How long could I maintain this delicate balance? How long before someone noticed the cracks in the carefully constructed persona? The thrill was addictive, but so was the tension, and I knew tomorrow would demand even more. The following day, the thrill of attention had shifted into something sharper, more intense. Alex was no longer simply navigating admiration. Now came the subtle tests, the challenges that accompanied rising popularity. Walking through the hallways, every glance carried judgment. Every whisper felt like a ripple in a pool, waiting to catch on and spread. Today, the dare wasn't just a dare anymore. It was a transformation with stakes, with consequences, and I could feel the weight pressing down on me. Emma approached first, her expression carefully neutral, yet her eyes sparkled with amusement. "I see you're holding your own," she said, voice low enough for only me to hear. "Don't let it go to your head." Her words, though casual, carried an unspoken warning. The dare had opened the door, but maintaining the persona meant constant vigilance. I nodded, trying to mask my racing heart. Emma wasn't just a friend anymore. She had become a barometer, a judge, a silent observer of my performance. In first period math, the whispers began almost immediately. People I had never spoken to stared with curiosity. The effect of my transformation rippled outward, drawing attention in ways I hadn't anticipated. Some eyes were admiring, some calculating, some skeptical. The duality of exhilaration and vulnerability gnawed at me. Every step I took, every subtle movement, became a negotiation between confidence and fear. It was a delicate dance, and one misstep could undo everything I had worked to build. At lunch, the tension reached a new level. A group of girls from the upperclassmen clique, the ones notorious for social dominance, blocked my usual table. They leaned against chairs, their expressions unreadable. "So, Alex," one said with a sly smile, "you're trying to be queen bee now." The words weren't cruel, but the challenge was clear. I swallowed the knot in my throat, keeping my posture straight, shoulders squared. I'm experimenting, I said, letting the word hang, confident yet cautious. Their laughter, soft and knowing, filled the air, but they moved on, leaving me simultaneously relieved and aware of how precarious my position truly was. The physical transformation became more than clothing. It was a source of both empowerment and vulnerability. I adjusted the skirt nervously, aware of how much attention it drew. My blouse felt tighter with each breath, a reminder that every detail mattered. The heels, which had felt terrifyingly empowering yesterday, now demanded focus. Each step was calculated, a test of balance, poise, and courage. The thrill was intoxicating, but the stakes were higher than ever. After school, the suspense extended into the hallways outside. Emma and I walked together, a silent acknowledgement of the social experiment we were conducting. Her presence was both comforting and intimidating. I could sense her evaluation in every glance, her curiosity in every word she chose not to say. The dare had evolved into a complex dance of perception and judgment, and I had to navigate it carefully. At home, the tension lingered. I removed the outfit slowly, careful with each movement. The reflection in the mirror showed a mixture of pride and exhaustion. Alex had survived the day, managed scrutiny, and navigated the delicate dynamics of high school politics. But the unease remained. Each interaction, each whisper, had revealed the thin line between admiration and ridicule, between control and exposure. The dare had become a delicate balance, a high-stakes game of appearance, perception, and self-confidence. That night, I lay in bed, heels off, blouse folded carefully. The adrenaline still coursed through my veins. The queen bee persona was no longer just a role. I had begun to internalize it, feel it, embody it. Yet the suspense lingered. Every day brought new challenges, new scrutiny, and the constant fear of being unmasked. The thrill of transformation was matched by the tension of exposure, and I realized that the dare had become more than a game. It was a journey of self-discovery, testing courage, resilience, and the very essence of who I was becoming. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope. The queen bee persona had grown stronger, more visible, but so had the stakes. Every hallway glance, every whisper, every smirk from classmates became a test of my composure. Alex had become more than a nickname. It was a role, a carefully constructed identity that demanded precision, poise, and constant attention. And with the growing influence came the subtle, almost invisible pressures that could topple everything. Emma noticed the shift immediately. That smirk of hers, the one that had once seemed playful, now carried a hint of curiosity and challenge. "You're handling this surprisingly well," she said one afternoon, her voice teasing yet serious. "But don't get too comfortable. People love to watch someone rise, but they also love to watch them fall." Her words, though light, hit with the weight of a warning. The dare had started as a simple challenge, but it had grown into a high-stakes social experiment. Maintaining composure, charm, and authority was now essential, and the slightest misstep could undo all the progress I had made. During classes, attention lingered longer than ever. Students who had once ignored me now studied every movement, every gesture. The thrill of being noticed mixed with a deep undercurrent of fear. Would I be able to maintain the persona if the attention intensified? Could Alex withstand the scrutiny of both admiration and jealousy without faltering? The internal conflict gnawed at me as I navigated the carefully constructed world of high school social dynamics. The cafeteria became an arena. Upperclassmen, previously indifferent, now lingered nearby, observing, whispering, testing boundaries. A friend leaned over at one point and whispered, "People are really watching you now. Careful." The reminder sent a shiver down my spine. Attention was intoxicating, but it was also dangerous. Every movement, every word had to be calculated, measured, and intentional. A slip could mean ridicule, exposure, or worse, a complete loss of the carefully cultivated persona. Physical transformation had become second nature, yet it carried its own set of anxieties. The skirt swayed differently today, a subtle reminder of how every detail mattered. The blouse, perfectly fitted, demanded careful posture, every breath controlled to maintain the image. Heels clicked against the hallway floor like tiny percussion, a constant reminder of visibility and vulnerability. The sensation was empowering yet precarious, thrilling yet nerve-wracking. Every step was a statement, every gesture a performance, and every glance from Emma or classmates heightened the suspense. After school, a new challenge arose. The popular girls' clique approached, their expressions unreadable, as if measuring, testing, and weighing me simultaneously. "So, Alex," one said with a sly smile, "thinking of taking your little act further?" The implication was clear. The persona had reached a point where attention could turn to scrutiny, and admiration could easily shift to judgment. I straightened, smile calm yet measured, and replied, "Just exploring what's possible." The response seemed to satisfy them for now. The subtle tension remained, a reminder that the social tightrope was still precarious and unforgiving. At home, I reflected on the day's events. The Queen Bee persona had grown stronger, yet so had the challenges. Each interaction, each glance, each whisper had become a test of resilience, confidence, and social navigation. The thrill of transformation was intoxicating, but the weight of expectation was heavy. Could I maintain the balance between admiration and scrutiny, visibility and vulnerability, power and fear? The internal struggle was constant, a silent companion to every confident step and every calculated smile. That night, standing in front of the mirror, I removed the heels and adjusted the blouse. The reflection revealed someone poised, confident, and undeniably visible, but also someone aware of the fragile balance that kept the persona intact. Alex had survived, adapted, and grown, but the suspense of the next day lingered like a shadow. Every glance, every word, every whisper in the school had consequences, and I knew the journey was far from over. The dare had evolved from a simple challenge into a test of character, resilience, and courage. The Queen Bee persona was not just a role, it was a new identity, one that demanded constant vigilance and emotional strength. The final days of the dare were the most intense. Alex had become undeniably visible, the Queen Bee persona taking full shape, but with that visibility came pressure unlike anything I had experienced before. Every step through the hallways, every flick of the hair, every subtle smile was under scrutiny. The thrill of admiration mingled with the fear of exposure, creating a tension that was almost unbearable. Emma noticed it immediately. "You're on fire," she whispered as we walked through the crowded cafeteria. Her words carried both awe and a subtle warning. "But remember, being noticed this much means everyone's watching your next move. One mistake, Alex, and it could all come crashing down." The reminder sent a shiver through me, but it also added fuel to the fire. The dare had become more than a challenge. It was now a high-stakes test of poise, confidence, and social dexterity. The hallways felt like a stage. Upperclassmen who had once ignored me now lingered, measuring, evaluating, testing boundaries. Friends whispered their observations, while rivals watched with concealed envy. Every glance was amplified, every comment dissected. I walked with measured steps, heels clicking like a drumbeat, each movement a careful balance between grace and command. The suspense of constant observation was intoxicating, yet the anxiety beneath it simmered like a hidden ember. In math class, the unexpected arrived. A new student, confident and sharp-eyed, approached me with a teasing grin. "So, Alex, I hear you're the one everyone's talking about." The voice was friendly, but the implication was clear. The persona was being tested, challenged by someone who could see through the surface. I straightened, forcing confidence into my posture, and replied smoothly, "Guess I'm just exploring new possibilities." The words carried a confidence I was still learning to embody, and the student's slight nod suggested temporary acceptance. Yet the tension lingered, a subtle reminder that the persona was fragile and required constant vigilance. During lunch, the upperclassmen clique returned, circling like predators, their expressions unreadable. One leaned closer, voice low enough for only me to hear. "Careful, Alex. People rise fast, but they fall faster. The whispered warning sent a shiver down my spine. This was the final test of the dare, the ultimate evaluation of whether I could maintain the queen bee persona under scrutiny and potential sabotage. Every smile, every laugh, every step became a performance with stakes higher than ever. The physical transformation was no longer just about appearance. It was about embodying power and confidence while managing vulnerability. The skirt swayed perfectly, the blouse fit seamlessly, and the heels, once a source of terror, had become instruments of authority and elegance. Each movement, each gesture, was calculated to project dominance while maintaining charm. The adrenaline surged, blending excitement and anxiety into a potent cocktail of emotional intensity. After school, I walked home with a mix of triumph and exhaustion. Alex had survived the social gauntlet, navigated rivalries, and maintained control over the persona. Yet the internal tension remained, a reminder that the dare was not just about transformation, but about resilience, strategy, and self-discovery. The queen bee persona had become a part of me, but maintaining it required constant awareness, careful calculation, and the courage to embrace both power and vulnerability simultaneously. That night, in front of the mirror, I carefully removed the outfit and adjusted the heels. The reflection revealed someone transformed, confident, and commanding, but also someone acutely aware of the fragile balance that had been maintained. Alex had risen to the challenge, embraced the persona, and survived the scrutiny and tests of popularity. Yet the suspense lingered like a shadow. How long could the persona be sustained? How much more exposure could be navigated before the fragile construction of confidence cracked? The dare had started as a simple challenge, a test of courage and curiosity. It had evolved into an intricate social experiment, a journey of self-discovery, and a high-stakes dance between visibility and vulnerability. Alex had emerged stronger, bolder, and more visible than ever. But the ultimate test, the true climax of this transformation, was still to come. The suspense, the stakes, and the emotional intensity had all built to this point, and the queen bee persona now stood ready, poised to face whatever challenges awaited next. The week had reached its breaking point. Every whispered comment, every glance from classmates, every smirk from rivals had pushed Alex to the edge. The queen bee persona that had begun as a dare now stood fully formed, but the true test was imminent. It wasn't just about attention anymore. It was about control, about maintaining poise under pressure, and about surviving the intense scrutiny that had now become relentless. That morning, as I walked into school, the tension was palpable. The hallways buzzed with anticipation, every student seemingly waiting for something to happen. Whispers turned into murmurs, and every step I took was amplified by 1,000 pairs of eyes. The adrenaline surged, mixing excitement with fear, as I realized the stakes were higher than ever. The persona I had carefully constructed was about to be tested in ways I hadn't anticipated. Emma approached, her expression a mixture of amusement and concern. "You're handling this well," she said quietly, her eyes scanning the crowd. "But someone's bound to push back. Be careful." Her words were both warning and encouragement. The weight of visibility pressed down on me, yet her presence was a reminder that support was nearby, even if subtle. I nodded, adjusting the skirt and smoothing the blouse. The heels clicked against the floor, each sound echoing the pulse of anticipation racing through my chest. During first period history, the unexpected happened. A group of upperclassmen, previously indifferent, approached with mischievous smiles. "So, Queen Bee," one said, "ready for a real challenge?" The tone was teasing, but the underlying threat was unmistakable. I swallowed, maintaining composure, and replied smoothly, "I've handled plenty of challenges." The words carried confidence, but internally, my heart raced. The dare had escalated beyond a playful experiment. It was now a high-stakes test of presence, courage, and social finesse. Lunchtime brought another wave of tension. The cafeteria, once merely a place to eat, had become an arena. The popular clique had gathered, eyes locked on me as if measuring every breath, every smile, every movement. A chair scraped loudly nearby, and all attention turned to the subtle exchange unfolding. A whispered comment, meant only for a few ears, carried through the room like a ripple. I felt the pressure tighten, my body tense with both excitement and fear. The queen bee persona required poise, elegance, and the ability to navigate scrutiny without faltering. Every gesture, every word, became a performance under a microscope. The physical transformation now demanded precision. The skirt swayed with each step, the blouse clung perfectly, and the heels, once intimidating, were now instruments of power and authority. Every movement was deliberate, every glance calculated, projecting confidence while concealing vulnerability. The thrill of visibility was intoxicating, yet the anxiety of potential exposure lingered. One slip, one misstep, and the delicate balance between admiration and ridicule could collapse entirely. After school, the suspense did not ease. A new student, sharp-eyed and confident, approached with a knowing smile. "I hear you've become quite the figure at school," they said, voice teasing but curious. The queen bee persona was being tested by someone who could see through superficial charm, someone capable of pushing boundaries and uncovering cracks. I straightened, forcing calm into my posture, and responded carefully. "It's been an interesting week." The reply was measured, composed, and guarded. The tension remained, however, as I realized that the social experiment had become a full-blown trial of endurance, strategy, and emotional control. At home that evening, reflection brought both triumph and anxiety. The queen bee persona had survived public scrutiny, navigated rivalries, and maintained control under pressure. Yet the internal tension, the delicate balance of confidence and vulnerability, admiration and fear, was ever present. The dare had evolved from a playful challenge into a journey of self-discovery and high-stakes social performance. Alex had emerged stronger, bolder, and more visible than ever. But the true climax, the ultimate confrontation with scrutiny, expectation, and personal limits, was yet to come. The tension escalated faster than I could anticipate. Walking into second period English, I sensed every eye in the room tracking my movements. Alex, the persona I had carefully cultivated, was now more than a dare. It was a symbol of attention, power, and scrutiny. But with that visibility came new challenges. The upperclassmen clique had been watching, measuring, and now they were ready to test boundaries in ways I wasn't fully prepared for. Emma leaned in quietly as I passed. "Brace yourself," she whispered, a faint edge of warning in her tone. "They're planning something." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, mingling excitement and fear in equal measure. My heartbeat quickened, and I felt the thrill of risk. This was no longer just about popularity. It was a test of poise, composure, and ability to navigate subtle psychological games. The unexpected came in the form of a challenge I couldn't ignore. One of the upperclassmen, a boy notorious for his sly, manipulative streak, approached with a smirk. "So, Alex," he said, voice low but deliberately audible to nearby students, "think you can handle the queen bee title without falling apart?" The words carried a dual threat, admiration tinged with mockery, a test disguised as curiosity. I swallowed nervously, my fingers tightening slightly around the strap of my bag. "I've handled worse," I replied, my voice steady though adrenaline surged beneath the surface. The cafeteria became an arena of subtle tests. Students whispered behind hands, watching my every movement. The popular clique had orchestrated what felt like an unspoken trap, small comments, teasing glances, and provocations designed to catch me off guard. Each step through the crowded room was a careful negotiation of posture, gaze, and composure. The physical transformation, the skirt, the blouse, the heels, was now a double-edged sword. It empowered me, but also magnified every slip, every miscalculated gesture. As the day progressed, the suspense intensified. During group activities in class, someone deliberately challenged my authority, questioning my choices and subtly undermining the persona I had so carefully built. Alex had to respond, but every reaction was scrutinized, every word analyzed. The internal conflict surged. I wanted to assert dominance, to embody the queen bee fully, yet the fear of ridicule or exposure gnawed at the edges of my confidence. After school, a new twist arrived, unexpected and unnerving. A student from another grade, sharp-eyed and perceptive, cornered me in the hallway. "You're playing a dangerous game, you know," they said, voice low, almost conspiratorial. "One slip, and everyone will see the real you." My chest tightened. The queen bee persona was now under siege, tested not only by peers, but by anyone capable of reading the nuances of my behavior. Every gesture, every glance, every breath became a calculated maneuver to maintain control while navigating fear. Back home, the reflection in the mirror revealed someone transformed yet tense. The outfit, once a source of empowerment, now felt like armor, necessary for confidence, but heavy with expectation. The heels pressed into my feet like a reminder of vigilance, and the carefully styled hair framed a face that carried both boldness and anxiety. Alex had survived countless challenges, yet the suspense of potential exposure loomed, creating an almost tangible tension in the room. That night, lying in bed, I replayed every interaction, every glance, every whispered word. The queen bee persona had been tested repeatedly, stretched to its limits, and yet the thrill of transformation remained intoxicating. The dare had become more than a challenge. It was a crucible, refining courage, resilience, and social dexterity. And as the adrenaline slowly faded, the awareness lingered. The ultimate climax, the point where confidence, fear, and exposure would collide, was fast approaching. The following morning, the school felt different, heavier somehow. Every glance seemed sharper, every whisper louder, as though the halls themselves had become a stage. Alex felt the weight of expectation pressing down more than ever. The dare, which had begun as a playful challenge, had evolved into a high-stakes social performance, and today promised to test the limits of confidence, poise, and emotional endurance. First period brought an unexpected obstacle. The upperclassmen clique, now clearly orchestrating a plan, cornered me near the lockers. "So, Queen Bee," one began, a smirk curling their lips, "think you can really hold this crown when things get messy?" The implication was clear. They intended to push boundaries, provoke reactions, and expose any cracks in the persona I had carefully cultivated. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to stand tall, heels clicking decisively on the linoleum floor. Every inch of posture, every subtle gesture, became a calculated effort to maintain control. Emma's eyes met mine across the hall, a flicker of concern and encouragement. She knew the danger, the potential for exposure, and yet there was pride in her gaze. "You've got this," she mouthed quietly. Her presence provided a tether to confidence, a reminder that even under scrutiny, support existed. Still, the tension was electric, a silent pressure that made every step feel like walking a tightrope. The challenge escalated quickly. During a group activity in science class, someone deliberately misinterpreted a comment I made, sparking a ripple of laughter across the table. Alex had to respond, to maintain authority without revealing fear or uncertainty. The internal battle was fierce: assert dominance or play it safe. The queen bee persona required finesse, and hesitation could undo the careful construction of confidence. I took a deep breath, choosing words carefully, tone steady, posture unwavering. The laughter subsided, replaced by cautious curiosity, a subtle acknowledgement of control maintained. Yet the suspense didn't end there. Lunchtime brought the ultimate test. The cafeteria, already an arena, had become a battlefield. A student I had considered an ally subtly challenged my position, questioning my choices with a sly smile. Around us, whispers multiplied, each one a thread in a web of scrutiny. Every movement, every smile, every glance was amplified, dissected, and interpreted. Alex had to navigate not just personal fear, but the collective judgment of peers, a delicate dance requiring both courage and strategy. The physical transformation, once empowering, now carried new pressure. The skirt swayed with each step, heels heightened every movement, and the blouse clung perfectly, accentuating the persona I had built. Every glance at my reflection in the window or a passing mirror was a reminder of duality. Alex, confident and commanding, versus the nervousness and vulnerability beneath the surface. The thrill of transformation mingled with fear of exposure, creating a cocktail of emotion that made every heartbeat feel amplified. After school, the unexpected twist arrived. A teacher, known for her perceptiveness, questioned Alex in front of the class about leadership and influence. The attention was intense, a mixture of admiration, scrutiny, and potential judgment. I had to respond with authority, poise, and subtle confidence, each word measured, each gesture deliberate. The challenge tested not only social skills but emotional resilience, forcing me to embody the persona fully while keeping internal anxiety hidden. By evening, reflection brought both relief and tension. Alex had survived the high-stakes challenges, navigated rivalries, and maintained the queen bee persona under relentless scrutiny. Yet the emotional toll was evident. The dare had evolved from a simple challenge into a test of self-expression, social strategy, and courage under pressure. The ultimate climax, where confidence, exposure, and vulnerability would collide completely, was approaching, and the awareness of that impending confrontation lingered like a shadow. The tension that had been simmering all week reached a boiling point the next morning. Alex entered the school hallways with a mixture of exhilaration and dread. Every glance seemed sharper, every whisper louder, as though the entire school was waiting for the perfect moment to challenge the queen bee persona. The dare had transformed from a playful social experiment into a crucible of scrutiny, attention, and emotional intensity. During first period, a sudden twist shook the carefully balanced persona. A rival, previously quiet and seemingly disinterested, suddenly spoke up during class. "Alex," they said, voice casual but eyes sharp, "think you're really ready to handle being the queen bee?" The words carried a subtle threat. This wasn't just about admiration or teasing, it was a challenge designed to provoke, destabilize, and test the limits of confidence. My pulse quickened, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. Every gesture, every posture, every tone of voice became a strategic decision. Emma's presence was a lifeline. From across the room, her gaze met mine, concern, pride, and a quiet warning all rolled into one. "Stay calm," her eyes seemed to say. "You've got this." The reassurance grounded me momentarily, but the weight of scrutiny was relentless. The queen bee persona demanded poise, elegance, and mental acuity, all while concealing the nervous tension bubbling beneath the surface. The challenge escalated during lunch. The cafeteria, already a stage for whispered judgments and subtle competitions, became the epicenter of suspense. A student deliberately spilled a drink near me, a calculated act designed to distract, provoke, and potentially embarrass. Hearts racing, I reacted with controlled grace, stepping back and steadying my stance. The movement was fluid, almost instinctual, years of careful practice in posture, balance, and social awareness converging in that single moment. The students around me murmured, some impressed, some skeptical, but all observing. The thrill of navigating danger in real time mingled with fear of exposure, creating a heady rush that Alex had never experienced so intensely. In the afternoon, a teacher's sudden announcement intensified the stakes. A presentation on leadership and influence had been scheduled, and I was called upon unexpectedly. Standing in front of the class, heels clicking confidently on the floor, I felt every pair of eyes drilling into me. The challenge was no longer subtle, it was direct, unavoidable, and public. I spoke carefully, choosing words that conveyed authority while maintaining the charm and poise of the queen bee persona. The tension was almost unbearable, each word weighted with the potential for success or humiliation. The physical transformation had become inseparable from the emotional one. The outfit, carefully chosen, was no longer just clothing. It was armor, identity, and symbol. The skirt swayed with each step, heels emphasizing command and elegance, and the blouse framed a persona that was at once confident and vulnerable. Every movement, every glance, Every breath carried both the thrill of empowerment and the fear of exposure. It was a delicate balance, one that required complete awareness and total control. By evening, the intensity of the day left a lasting impression. The queen bee persona had been tested repeatedly, pushed to its limits, and yet maintained. Each challenge, provocation, and unexpected twist had been navigated successfully, but the emotional toll was undeniable. The dare had become more than a challenge. It had evolved into a high-stakes journey of self-discovery, social mastery, and emotional resilience. And as I looked into the mirror, removing the outfit and adjusting the heels, I realized the ultimate climax, the final confrontation where visibility, vulnerability, and persona would collide completely, was just around the corner. The day had arrived when the queen bee persona would be tested like never before. Alex walked through the crowded hallways with heightened awareness, every whisper and glance magnified in intensity. The dare, which had begun as a playful experiment, had transformed into a high-stakes performance, one that demanded every ounce of poise, courage, and strategy one could summon. The suspense was electric, as though the entire school was collectively holding its breath. It started subtly, with a ripple of attention as a group of classmates exchanged glances and hushed comments. I felt the weight of scrutiny pressing down on my shoulders, amplified by the heels that had become both a source of empowerment and vulnerability. Each step was deliberate, each movement carefully calculated. The queen bee persona demanded perfection, and any slip could unravel the delicate balance I had maintained throughout the week. Then came the unexpected twist. One of the rivals, previously passive, suddenly confronted me in the hallway, voice loud enough to draw the attention of nearby students. "Alex, think you can keep this crown without messing up?" The challenge was overt, designed to provoke and potentially humiliate. My heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through me, as I realized that this confrontation was the ultimate test of composure. I forced a calm smile, steadying my posture and projecting confidence even as panic simmered beneath the surface. Emma appeared almost instinctively, her gaze sharp and unwavering. "You've got this," she murmured, a subtle reassurance that bolstered my courage. Her presence reminded me that while the dare had been mine to take, I was not entirely alone. Yet the pressure remained immense. The eyes of the school, the whispers of judgment, and the constant threat of exposure created a tension that seemed almost physical. The confrontation escalated quickly. The rival attempted a verbal jab, a subtle mockery meant to destabilize me. I responded carefully, each word measured, each inflection deliberate. The effect was immediate. The whispering subsided, replaced by a tense curiosity. I realized then that the queen bee persona was not just about appearance. It was about strategy, awareness, and emotional resilience. The thrill of control mingled with the fear of collapse, creating a cocktail of tension that made every heartbeat feel amplified. In the cafeteria, the final challenge awaited. A spill was staged near my table, a deliberate act to test composure and reaction under pressure. I navigated the situation with grace, stepping back and maintaining balance in the heels, adjusting the skirt subtly to ensure poise. The act was observed by peers, some impressed, some skeptical, but all recognizing the finesse required to survive such a calculated provocation. Each small victory reinforced the queen bee persona, yet the suspense lingered. Any misstep could unravel everything. After school, in front of the mirror, reflection brought both triumph and tension. Alex had navigated every social challenge, every provocation, every orchestrated obstacle with skill, grace, and strategy. The outfit, the heels, the carefully styled hair, all symbols of transformation, were removed, revealing the duality of identity, the confident, commanding persona versus the nervous, vulnerable self that had been present all along. The experience had been exhilarating, exhausting, and emotionally intense, a journey that pushed the boundaries of self-expression, social navigation, and personal courage. Yet the story did not end with resolution. The ultimate cliffhanger remained, the uncertainty of how long the persona could be maintained, the anticipation of further challenges, and the lingering question of exposure. The dare had evolved into something far greater than a playful challenge. It had become a suspenseful journey of transformation, emotional intensity, and social mastery. The queen bee persona had been tested, refined, and proven resilient, but the story left viewers on edge, wondering what would happen next and whether Alex could continue to navigate the complex, high-stakes world of popularity, scrutiny, and identity. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the schoolyard as I walked home, still wearing the lingering sense of the day's trials like an invisible crown. Each step was a reminder of everything that had happened: the whispered comments, the deliberate challenges, the strategic maneuvers to maintain the queen bee persona. The dare had evolved far beyond its playful beginnings. It had become a high-stakes journey that tested courage, composure, and emotional endurance. Even as I approached my street, the tension didn't lift. The memories of the day played on repeat in my mind: the rival's smirk in the hallway, the carefully orchestrated cafeteria incident, the teacher's scrutinizing gaze. Each moment had demanded attention, precision, and resilience. And though I had survived, thrived even, there was an undercurrent of unease. How long could I maintain this persona before it all unraveled? Who would finally notice the cracks beneath the surface? As I reached my front door, a notification buzzed on my phone. A group chat message from classmates appeared. "Queen Bee, we need to talk." My stomach tightened. Was this another challenge, another test, or something far more unpredictable? The ambiguity was torturous. My fingers trembled slightly as I unlocked the door, the thrill and anxiety of the unknown mingling into a heady rush. Inside, Emma was waiting, a subtle smile on her face, but eyes full of curiosity. "You handled yourself amazingly today," she said, her voice calm but knowing. "But there's someone you haven't met yet, someone who's seen what you've been doing." My heart skipped a beat. The suspense was immediate, tangible, like a weight pressing against my chest. The dare, the persona, the transformation, all of it had led to this moment, where everything could change in an instant. I sat down, trying to steady my breathing, as Emma placed a hand on mine. "They might challenge you in ways you didn't expect. Are you ready for that?" I nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at me. The queen bee persona had carried me through countless trials, yet the thrill of power was inseparable from the fear of exposure. I realized that the line between confidence and vulnerability was razor-thin, and any misstep could topple everything. A sudden knock at the door jolted me. I froze, heart racing, unsure whether to answer. The suspense was unbearable. Emma whispered, "Go on, let's see what happens." With a shaky hand, I opened the door. Standing there was a figure I didn't recognize, someone new to the school, but with a presence that immediately commanded attention. Their eyes scanned me, taking in the outfit, the posture, the carefully curated aura. A smile curled on their lips, playful, knowing, and almost predatory. "Queen Bee, I hear you've been running the show," the newcomer said, voice low but deliberate. "But can you really keep it up? Or are you ready for the next challenge?" Every word was a test, every glance a measurement. The suspense was overwhelming. I felt the weight of the persona, the pressure of expectation, and the thrill of possibility converge into a single moment. My heart raced, my mind scrambled, and the adrenaline surged through every nerve. Emma stepped back, giving space but keeping a watchful eye. "Your move," she said softly. And there I was, standing at the edge of uncertainty, the culmination of the week's trials pressing down. The queen bee persona had survived countless challenges, navigated social minefields, and maintained composure under intense scrutiny, but the final, ultimate test had just begun. The door closed slowly behind the newcomer, leaving me alone with the tension, the thrill, and the uncertainty of what would happen next. Every scenario raced through my mind: success, humiliation, revelation, empowerment, but none of them resolved the suspense. The dare had transformed into something far greater, a journey of identity, social mastery, and emotional courage that left me suspended on the precipice of revelation. And so, the story ended, not with resolution, but with anticipation. The queen bee persona had proven itself resilient, captivating, and commanding, yet the ultimate confrontation remained unseen. Would I maintain my status? Would the persona survive the new challenge? Or would it all collapse in a single, dramatic moment? The questions hung in the air, unresolved, leaving the audience eager, curious, and desperate to know what would happen next. Just as I thought the tension couldn't escalate further, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number appeared. "So you've been the queen bee, let's see how long that lasts." Sighs. My hands trembled. Who could it be? A classmate, a rival, someone new? The timing was uncanny, almost as if they had been watching all along, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Every instinct screamed caution, yet curiosity gnawed at me relentlessly. Emma noticed the change in my expression. "What is it?" she asked, her tone calm but edged with concern. I showed her the message, and her eyes widened slightly. "Looks like someone's aware of everything," she whispered. "They know, or at least suspect. And this isn't just about a dare anymore. It's about power, perception, and maybe even exposure." The weight of her words settled over me like a storm cloud. The queen bee persona, once a playful experiment, had now become a fragile shield under siege. The hallways of the school, which had felt like a stage before, now seemed like a labyrinth of unseen eyes. Every glance felt scrutinizing, every whisper a potential threat. As I walked to my locker, I caught snippets of conversation that made my heart race. "Did you hear about the Queen Bee Challenge? I think someone's finally going to crack her. Wait, isn't that Alex?" Each comment stoked the fire of suspense, turning every ordinary movement into a tense, high-stakes game. By lunch, the tension had become almost unbearable. A small group of students, previously distant, gathered near my table, their faces unreadable. They didn't speak, but their presence alone was enough to make every muscle tense, every thought sharpen. The dare, the persona, the queen bee identity, everything hung in the balance. A single misstep could unravel weeks of careful navigation. I tried to smile, tried to maintain composure, but even the practiced sway of my skirt and the confident click of my heels couldn't fully mask the tension. Then the unexpected happened. A shadow passed over the cafeteria table. I looked up and froze. Standing there was someone I didn't recognize, someone new to the school. Their eyes scanned me from head to toe, taking in every detail of the outfit, the posture, the aura. A slow, deliberate smile curved their lips. "Queen Bee, huh?" they said, voice low but clear. "I think it's time for the real test." Every word dripped with challenge and intrigue. The suspense was palpable, as though the air itself had thickened with anticipation. Emma stepped close, whispering, "This isn't just about school popularity anymore. They've seen everything, maybe more than you realize. Are you ready for what's coming?" My heart pounded. The thrill of empowerment, the fear of exposure, and the adrenaline of uncertainty collided in a storm of emotion. The queen bee persona had carried me this far, but now the stakes had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Every decision, every gesture, every word could tip the balance. Suddenly, a classmate leaned in, whispering just loud enough for me to hear, "She's not who she seems, watch closely." The ambiguity was torturous. Was this a warning? A threat? Or a subtle hint of something even more dramatic waiting to unfold? My mind raced through possibilities, calculating risks and planning responses, yet none of it could prepare me for the next move. Just as I tried to regain control, a loud cheer erupted from the other side of the cafeteria. Everyone's eyes turned toward the commotion. The new challenger stepped forward, confidently walking past the table, making a deliberate show of acknowledging the crowd. Whispers spread like wildfire, curiosity and anticipation electrifying the air. The queen bee persona had reached its pinnacle, but now the ultimate challenge, unknown, unpredictable, and undeniably personal, was about to begin. As the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, the newcomer didn't leave. Instead, they paused, looked directly at me, and said with a teasing, almost sinister smile, "See you tomorrow, Queen Bee. Let's find out who really rules this school." The suspense was unbearable. My pulse raced, my thoughts scrambled, and the queen bee persona felt both exhilarating and dangerously fragile. I glanced at Emma, her eyes wide with anticipation and concern. "This is bigger than we thought," she murmured. "Tomorrow, everything could change." The words hung in the air like a challenge, a promise, and a threat all at once. My mind whirled with possibilities: exposure, triumph, embarrassment, victory. But one thing was certain: the story was far from over. Standing there, in the middle of the bustling cafeteria, I felt the full weight of the queen bee persona and the suspense it carried. Every step, every glance, every whisper was a reminder that the next day could bring either ultimate triumph or complete unraveling. The dare had transformed into a journey of identity, power, and suspense, leaving me and the audience on the edge of anticipation. And with that, the final cliffhanger settled. The queen bee's reign had only begun, and tomorrow promised challenges that no one, neither Alex nor the audience, could predict. The question lingered, unresolved. Would the persona survive, or was the queen bee about to face the ultimate test?